you to hear that I'm often asked what kinds of books I like to represent. It just happened at the lunch table. I get that because I know that potential authors and artists want to direct their queries to the most receptive literary agent, which is smart. And I've always tried to provide answers to this question that are practical. Obvious and tweetable answers such as, I want funny middle grade, dystopian YA, picture books with a universal theme, stories that matter. But as the years come and go, and I look into my heart, if I'm to be truthful, the real answer is this. I'm looking for people who are on a journey. I'm looking for people who want to break their hearts wide open and never close them again. I'm looking for people who can only say, why not? I used to say, too, that Pippin is an agency devoted exclusively to children's books, but I can't say that anymore. Over the years, we've morphed into an agency that's devoted exclusively to accompanying artists and authors on their path, wherever it might take them, however many twists and blind spots and U-turns and hills and bumps they may encounter. We're here to help you through. I want to talk to you today about one journey in particular I've been privileged to go on with author and artist David Small. But even more important than the specifics of his experience, I want to share with you some things I've learned from accompanying him, because what I've learned may be useful to you. I want to tell you about the traits I've noted along the way that drive some people to excellence that knows no bounds. And I'll share with you some tools you'll need in your pack as you walk down your own road, a road that can sometimes be incredibly lonely, a road where you can sometimes see only 3 feet in front of you, a road that always leads you back to yourself. As my sister Allison said so eloquently in a speech for her 25th college reunion, I remember asking Tom Calcagney late one night at a party, how can you fling yourself off that tower? For years I, the non-skier, had admired ski jumpers, how they arced their bodies into the unseen air. It's no big deal, he said. We were sitting side by side in 2 large green chairs. The air is soft. It's like a pillow. It cushions you. You just go into your tuck and do it. Allison continues with, what he didn't tell me was that the cushion was there and then not there, and it could move you all over the place, depending on air pockets and wind gusts. I know that now. But what I've always gone back to is that first, long ago comment. You just go into your tuck and do it. Allison's words are ones I come back to again and again. These are powerful words. You might be here because you want to get going, and if you're committed, there's no turning back. And the only person you can fail is yourself. And the only way you can fail is by quitting. Because you'll be making your own map as you go along. There's no destination, only many stops and curves and mountains and slopes and hills and valleys along the way. In any case, I'm so pleased to meet you. David Small's Stitches was published as an adult graphic memoir by Bob Weil at Norton in the fall of 2009, and went on to receive a generous number of accolades, including being named a National Book Award finalist. I began working with David Small in 1999, and just a year later, David found himself at what was deemed to be the pinnacle of his children's book career. He was the king of the cats, having been knighted with the Caldecott Medal for So You Want to Be President. But upon receiving this prestigious award, he had to begin again. And he had to look at himself and say, what next? He had to work within his own emotional state, a state in which his insecurity about his future remained steadfast. His doubt required that his dance card be full. It required that he be scheduled out with book projects several years in advance. His fear of going hungry paralyzed him. In the midst of this, I told him that I hoped one day he'd be brave and secure enough to finish one book without knowing what was next, that he'd believe enough in himself to face the field with his arms outstretched, to take in the sun shining down and the blue sky over his head and breathe quietly and own the possibility held there. But until then, I would support, if not endorse, his need to be booked with projects in advance. He took on the task of illustrating many children's books over the years, some of them remarkable and some of them not. And he was very, very busy. Several years later, innocently enough, his journey into himself began in earnest. At that time, he showed me a chapter he'd written for a book tentatively titled Symptoms, all in prose. He sent it along over email, neither of us knowing that he was embarking on a work that would require all of what he knew about himself and his life and his heart, and then some more. I was very much taken with the voice of this piece, and I told him so. There was an honesty in this little autobiographical short that went straight to my heart. But the years came and went as they do, and every so often I would ask him about that thing he'd shared with me called Symptoms, that little manuscript I'd connected with and couldn't forget about. He'd brush me off, although never rudely, and we'd get back to picture books. But as time went on, he allowed his schedule to open up a bit, and so did his heart and mind. As he became more and more comfortable with not knowing precisely what he'd be doing for the next few years, little by little, he was able to focus more and more on his inner life and on his dreams. He was, slowly and surely, finding the freedom to look inside himself, with all his despair and with the joy that accompanies it. He was opening his heart to his life and to all that he is. And shortly thereafter, one night at a restaurant with his wife, he had what could maybe be called a panic attack. Or maybe it was more like a summons from himself to show up and be accountable to himself. Over dinner with his wife at the Fisher Lake Inn, in the exact spot on his neck where his childhood cancer had been located, a lump grew before their eyes. A lump that looked conspicuously like the cancerous tumor that had grown on him at the age of 14. Right there before them it appeared. It was at this point that David went into the bathroom at the inn, looked in the mirror, and faced himself. He knew that he was either going to die right there, or he was going to find a way to go back in time and write his memoir being the form of therapy that would save his life, that would force him to make peace with his childhood. He chose to live. He chose to tell his story. But how would he tell it? Although he's a beautiful writer, words did not come easily to him. The answer to how he would write it revealed itself on a trip to Paris, where he was captivated by some of the graphic novels he saw there. And voila, there was his solution right in front of him. Something he'd known all along. His pictures are his words. He's an artist. He drew pictures as fast as a writer types, and with abandon. The pictures that would later be called stitches came pouring out of him. How fitting that a book that started out with the name Symptoms, which often are used to diagnose an illness,